Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you to Raya and Mordechai Meltz for making this possible. And Shavua Tov, Chodesh Adar, Chodesh Simcha, a month of happiness, a month of joy. And we are coming closer and closer to Purim. There's a few special ideas this week coming up, besides Purim itself. But let's talk a bit about our Parsha, Parsha Tetzave, a very interesting Parsha that we are going to be starting to read. And there's something very interesting about it, because this is the only Parsha that does not mention the name of Moshe Rabbeinu since the time he was born and until the day he passed away. Out of all the Parshias, let's say from the beginning of Chumash Shmot, Moshe Rabbeinu is mentioned. He's mentioned until the very last Parsha of Zois HaBracha, but in our Parsha, he's not mentioned. His name is not mentioned. You're not going to find it there. And the question is why? So this is a question that the Chazal, our scholars, talk about. And the reason is because if you remember, after the golden calf, after the sin that Am Yisrael did, right after Matan Torah, so what happened was Hashem decided to annihilate the entire Jewish people, the entire nation. Moshe Rabbeinu hears that. Immediately he tells Hashem, please don't do that. And if you're going to do it, I don't want to be mentioned in the Torah. Because we all know that Hashem gave a promise to Avraham. He told him that your children, your descendants will become a great nation. And if Hashem will annihilate the Jewish people, so where would his promise become true? So Hashem tells Moshe Rabbeinu, you know what? I will make out of your children a new Jewish nation. Moshe Rabbeinu says, if that's the case, if I'm the one to cause a possibility for you to kill the Jewish people, don't write me in your Torah. Erase me from the Torah. Mecheni na misifrecha asher kosavta. I don't want to be mentioned in the Torah. Now we know that at the end, Hashem forgave us and Hashem did not punish us in such a severe way. But when a tzaddik says something, when a tzaddik comes up with a certain statement, even if it's in a certain condition, his word has to come true. In other words, when Moshe Rabbeinu says, erase me from your Torah, that has to come true. That has to happen in some way. That's why our Parsha does not talk about Moshe Rabbeinu, it does not say his name. Here we have something very interesting. The Parsha might not say Moshe Rabbeinu's name, but it talks about Moshe Rabbeinu. More than that, the beginning of the Parsha starts with the words Ve'ato Tetzave, which means, and you shall command. Who is you? Who is the Torah referring to? To Moshe Rabbeinu. The Torah is telling Moshe Rabbeinu, Hashem tells Moshe Rabbeinu, command Aharon and his children, etc., with all the laws of the special clothes that the Kohanim used to wear, with the menorah that the Kohanim lit. So, although Moshe Rabbeinu's name is not mentioned in the Torah, but his presence is here, and in a stronger way, because his name's not mentioned, but it's talking about his essence, le'ata. And you, when you directly encounter someone, when you speak to him directly and you say you are talking about the person himself. Similar to referring to him as a name, right? A name is only a way to describe someone, right? Names, it's an interesting topic talking about names, but names on the one hand have a deep connection to the essence of the person, but it's only a way to describe him. When I refer to someone as you, that's direct, that means that I feel a deep connection to the person, right? We don't say to anyone you, right? when we respect a person, we would refer to him. We would refer to him as he, etc. In a third language, third body, and the idea is that here, although it doesn't mention Moshe Rabbeinu's name, but it talks about Moshe Rabbeinu himself. So, how is that? How does it work in that way? What really happened over here? So the truth is that Moshe Rabbeinu has two parts to him. And the question is, well, why did Moshe Rabbeinu say, Mecheni na mesifrecha? Why did he give up his whole presence and his whole personality, right? Moshe Rabbeinu gave us the Torah. The Torah is everything for Moshe Rabbeinu. Why does he want his name erased? And the answer is that Moshe Rabbeinu is a true leader. He's a true leader to the Jewish people. And he knows that if he is a possibility, that Am Yisrael would not exist. So he does not want to exist, although he's deeply connected to the Torah. But he prefers his true essence. Moshe Rabbeinu's true essence was Am Yisrael. We are deeply connected together. It says the Lashon of Rashi. Rashi's words are, Moshe hu Yisrael. Moshe is Am Yisrael. Be Yisrael hu Moshe. And Yisrael and the Jewish people are Moshe. So we are connected in the deepest way possible. Moshe Rabbeinu is like the mind, and we are the body. So you cannot separate the mind from the body. And when we talk about the Torah, the wisdom of Hashem, that is to a certain extent an external part of Moshe Rabbeinu. That's why Moshe Rabbeinu said to Hashem, well, you know what? I want to be deeply connected to Am Yisrael. I don't want to be separated. Please erase me from the Torah and let me continue with Am Yisrael being united together. That's why our Parsha might not say the name of Moshe. It is an external expression that we use to describe Moshe Rabbeinu, but it talks about Ve'ata and you, Moshe Rabbeinu. We're talking about Moshe Rabbeinu's essence that is mentioned in our Parsha, that's mentioned in the Torah, for the very reason that the essence of Moshe Rabbeinu is deeply connected to the essence of each and every Jew. So now we can understand why the Torah does not mention Moshe, but it talks about Moshe. It does not mention the name. The name's a bit external, but it talks about the true essence of Moshe Rabbeinu, who defended and protected the Jewish people, and it shows us what a true leader is. That's how much we lack today when we look for leaders, for people that are prepared to give up on their own titles, their own existence, what they worked for tremendously. Moshe Rabbeinu worked in order to bring the Torah down here. He took us out of Egypt. The purpose was to give us the Torah. Let's talk a bit about Purim. So in Purim, there's also another interesting idea in the Megillah about mentioning names. So Purim, we're going to be celebrating it. We have a special Purim this year in Yerushalayim. We celebrate 3 days. We read the Megillah on Friday. We say Va'ala Nisim on Shabbos. And we do the Seudah and Mishloach Manas. We do that on Sunday. So we've got a tripled Purim, and it's a reason to celebrate a lot. And this Be'ezrat Hashem this year should be a very, very happy year to make up and to move forward with happiness and connection to Hashem. So in the Megillah, if you read the entire Megillah, it's not that long. And if you read the Megillah, you might notice something very interesting. It does not mention Hashem's name at all. The entire Megillah talks about the story, the festival, and the celebration that Achashverosh had, talking about Haman, talking about Mordechai, about Esther, about all these amazing, this whole amazing story, and about the miracle that happened here. And it does not mention Hashem's name. Interesting. The Gemara asks, where can we find in the Torah the story of the Megillah? So it says, V'anoichi Aster, 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 which means I will hide myself. And that's where we know Aster is very similar to the word Esther, to Queen Esther. And that's how we know that the Megillah is connected to the Torah. What does it mean in Hebrew, in Lashon HaKodesh, V'anochi haster Aster? I shall hide myself. Esther min HaTorah minala. And if we want to talk about the story of Purim, it's talking about Hashem hiding himself. Now that's very interesting, because when we celebrate Purim, that's an amazing miracle. And it's a miracle that is celebrated throughout the year. It's a miracle that is celebrated not only throughout the year, which means the power that we have, the simcha, influences the entire year, but it is a holiday that's celebrated by all the Jews, everyone, no matter how frum you are, no matter how what your Eidah is exactly, we all celebrate it, and everyone takes part in this Chag, and we know we're coming up to it soon. Azazaza, there'll be quite a few places in Rechavia that we're going to be having Megillah readings every hour, starting from 9 o'clock all the way to 2 on Friday afternoon. We'll be having Megillah readings, and this is a special time where we can see all colors and all parts of the Jewish people coming together and reading and listening to the Megillah. So this is a great, great holiday. And the question is, it's a great miracle that everyone seems to agree about. So how come it doesn't mention Hashem's name in the Megillah? So in order to understand that, and here we'll try and figure out what's so special. How come this holiday is celebrated by everyone? Why is it that Pesach, so right, that's also pretty much celebrated, but not as much as Purim. Shavuos, people not everyone celebrates Shavuos, and Sukkot and Rosh Hashanah. So Purim is something that we all have a consensus around, and we all agree that it is a special holiday. But why is that? Why is it such a special holiday? So let's talk about the Jewish history. Let's see a few miracles throughout our history. We can find very interesting miracles that happened, such as an amazing miracle. Let's talk about Kriyat Yam Suf. We read about it in a few parshas ago. We read about Parsha Tetzave. We read about it in Parshas Beshalach. Am Yisrael are leaving Egypt, right? The 10 plagues, an amazing exodus. And Am Yisrael come towards the Red Sea, and they don't know what to do. And Hashem changes the nature of the sea. Water, as we all know, is something that flows. It always goes downwards. It cannot stand still. But nevertheless, Hashem made an amazing miracle. Where did Hashem make this miracle? Right there, before Am Yisrael are crossing the sea. The water split basically, and it changed its nature. Unbelievable. That is one way of Hashem expressing himself, right? He shows that he's the ruler of the world. And as the ruler of the world, he is able to change nature. He's able to cause water to be similar to bricks, for example. He is able to change the water to become blood, right? As we learned about the first plague that the Egyptians received. In other words, he has the power to overcome nature. That is one of the first miracles that we can see throughout the Jewish history, and it affects us today. Let's talk about another kind of miracle that Hashem does. And that is about the Jewish people during the times of Hanukkah, right? We know that the Greeks ruled. They were the empire in those days, And they they ruled the Eretz Yisrael as well. They conquered Eretz Yisrael, and they went towards Beis Hamikdash. Interestingly enough, they did not destroy the holy temple. They caused the oils to become impure, and they forbid the Jewish people from practicing certain mitzvot, certain obligations, such as Shabbat, Bris Milah, and a few others. Hashem did an amazing miracle where the Maccabees, Matisyahu, and his children were able to defeat the Greek Empire. And this is something amazing. As we read in Al-Anisim and in the Gemara that tells us about the miracles, we read that Hashem basically Hashem caused that a small group of people, untrained, unprofessional, without special ammunition, without arms, were able to defeat the biggest empire. That is a huge miracle. The miracle that we were able to defeat an empire, that's not something obvious. That's not something easy. That's a miracle. And that's what we celebrate. We said, Ba'al Anisim, Nasata Giborim Biyad Chalashim. Heroes, you caused them to fall into the hands of weak people, right? The Maccabees, the Hashmonaim, they were scholars. They basically learned Torah most of the day, and they did not practice warfare. So nevertheless, they were able to overcome the Greek Empire. It wasn't even all the Jewish people. It was a small group that were able to win this war. So that's another miracle, but this miracle isn't that great. Hashem did not change nature. Hashem tilted nature. So that's very interesting, because when we compare that miracle to the miracle of crossing the Red Sea, so it's two different miracles, right? The miracle of crossing the Red Sea, Hashem changes nature, he even breaks nature. And in the miracle of the Hashmonaim, the miracle of Hanukkah, what we see over there is that Hashem did not change nature. It's not that people were able to fly, for example. The Maccabees, the Hashmonaim, did not fly. All they did was they were able to beat stronger people. But that is something that we could explain according to nature. I mean, it's something that's miraculous, but it's still in the boundaries of nature. Something that doesn't happen often, doesn't even happen at all. But you say, well, he was good with the arrow and he was able to kill someone stronger than him, right? It's not that they used any kind of weapon that was a miraculous weapon. They used nature, and nature, the rules of nature were not broken. So that is the idea behind the second miracle of Hanukkah. Finally, let's talk about Purim and the miracle of Purim. Just before that, I just would like to mention the miracle of the 6-day war. The miracle of the 6-day war is a miracle. When the BBC spoke about it, they compared it to the prophecies from the Bible. They said it is a miracle. There's no question how Israel, such a small country, and a country that was not trained, and a country that did not have as many weapons, they were able to beat, I don't know how many enemies we fought. I know from Iraq, Syria, Jordan, even a bit of Lebanon, Egypt, of course. Thousands and thousands of soldiers that were against us, and we were able to beat them in 6 days. That is a miracle. Slightly similar to the miracle of Hanukkah. But again, it does not change nature. If we go through the history and we would see what were the techniques that they used, they are all techniques that actually win a war. For example, bombing the aircrafts, right? That was something that they did immediately, and they controlled the air. So we can explain it according to nature, but nevertheless, Hashem changed slightly nature, right? That's just an example to see what we're talking about. Now let's talk about Purim, because Purim is truly amazing. And again, we've got to try and figure out why Purim is celebrated out of all the other holidays. It's mostly celebrated. So Purim doesn't mention Hashem's name in the Megillah. Doesn't mention Hashem's name for a reason. Hashem was not visible. Hashem was there during the miracle, but you could not find him. What happened there? Am Yisrael were in a big trouble. They basically were facing an order from the king Achashverosh that they will be killed on a certain date. The king Achashverosh marries Esther. Esther happens to be a Jewish girl, the nephew of Mordechai, who was the head of the Sanhedrin. Amazing. Esther uses her connections as the queen, as Achashverosh's wife, and she gathers a meeting, a meal, together with Haman and with Achashverosh, and she tells Achashverosh, you know that there's someone that wants to kill me and my people, and that is Haman. And Achashverosh hears that, and he says, well, you know what? You are my queen, and this is unacceptable. He kills Haman, and the Jews have no problem anymore. The problem is solved. This is something that if we would look at it in a cold way, there is no miracle here. This is a coincidence. Am Yisrael used their connections in order to make sure that Haman's idea would not become a reality. So this isn't something, this is no miracle here. There's nothing miraculous about it. This is something that happens on a daily basis. So where is the miracle? The truth is that the miracle is if we look at the general picture. If we look at the general picture and we see, well, it's not so easy to become a queen, right? It's not so. It's not 100% sure that the queen can even overcome the advisor of the king. In those days, the king had a good relationship to his advisor, and there was trust between them because that's the way they ruled their country. So even if Achashverosh would hear and listen what Esther would say, he would say, well, you know what, let your people to sort it out themselves. You are my queen, maybe you'll be able to continue being my queen, but the Jewish people, so I'm listening to Haman. He came with good reasons. He paid me a lot of money. So the general picture shows us that it isn't just a coincidence. It isn't just something that naturally happened. Hashem is behind the picture, but he hides behind the picture. So after hearing this, probably you'll all think, well, okay, so there's no real miracle over here. That is the struggle. Finding Hashem in those small details in nature when we can't see his hand. He doesn't change nature. He does not break nature. He doesn't even tilt nature to his side. He makes sure that nature plays according to his way. That is the highest level in connecting to Hashem. The highest level of our belief in Hashem is believing not that he is unlimited, that he can break nature. That's obvious. Yes, he can break nature. The real chokhmah is seeing Hashem in nature itself. Waking up in the morning, and it's a regular morning. We are used to waking up, being able to take a deep breath and say, thank you, Hashem, for this new day. Yes, it is purely nature. That's what nature does. But we believe that this nature is guided by Hashem. Hashem hides behind it. We can't see him. But nevertheless, we know, looking at the general picture, looking at the story there of Purim, we definitely know that there was a hand of Hashem behind everything. So once again, that's why It doesn't talk about Hashem's name in our Parsha. It doesn't mention in the Megillah. It doesn't mention his name, right? It does not mention the name for a various reason, because Hashem was not revealed there. V'anochi haster astir. I will hide myself. I will hide myself in the Megillah. I will hide myself behind nature. And for that very reason, this holiday is so special. This holiday is so special because it's connected to our essence. The essence of the Jewish people is that we connect to Hashem and we are part of Hashem. And that's why, even though we don't see him all the time and see his hand all the time, but nevertheless, our neshama is connected to him. And that is why we celebrate Purim. Out of all of the Jewish holidays, that is why that's such a special holiday. Because it shows us that nature is deeply in Hashem's hands, and he doesn't even need to change it. He can control nature, and nature will follow his orders in a way that will seem to us as if there is no miracle. And it's something that would happen anyways. So to summarize what we learned today, we spoke about two topics. The idea is Moshe Rabbeinu hiding in our Parsha, Hashem hiding in the Megillah. Moshe Rabbeinu does not mention his name in our Parsha, but it talks about Moshe in a way that we never saw before. We refer to Moshe Rabbeinu as you, the Tetzave, because we are talking about the highest level in Moshe Rabbeinu, his essence. The connection of him and Am Yisrael is unlimited, and that's why, even though his name might not be there, but he is there. And that's the exact same idea behind the Megillah and Hashem's name. Hashem does not, his name is not mentioned in the Megillah, but he is there in the deepest way possible. This is because the miracle of Purim wasn't a miracle that broke nature's ways. It didn't even tilt nature's ways like Hanukkah, but it showed that Hashem is in control of nature itself. And that is why his name is not mentioned, but this is the holiday that we celebrate the most. And by the way, when Mashiach will come, hopefully right at this moment, what will happen is that we're not going to celebrate all the holidays. Some of the holidays we are going to need to say goodbye to. But the miracle of Purim, the holiday of Purim, that is a miracle that we are going to celebrate even after Mashiach comes. Because that's the whole idea. That's why when Mashiach will come, we aren't going to say goodbye to nature. When Mashiach will come, things in this world will be exactly the same as before. One thing will change. We'll acknowledge and we'll see how Hashem is behind nature. Today it's a struggle. And when I'll go home and when you go home, so what will happen is we'll think twice. Well, was it a miracle during Purim? Or maybe it was not a miracle and it was a coincidence. That is our challenge. The challenge is to believe that Hashem is behind nature itself. And if we try look at it for a moment at the general picture, we will find his hand navigating everything. So when Mashiach will come, we will still stay with this miracle of Purim and with nature, but only this time we won't need to do all the calculations and trying to see the big picture, the general picture. We'll be able to see Hashem's hand in each and every part of our lives. Thank you very, very much for taking part in this shir. And I'm wishing you all a Shavua Tov and a Purim Sameach. And I'm looking forward, Bezrat Hashem, seeing you all, Bezrat Hashem, next week at 9:30.